Wednesday, May 3rd, and this is the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting. Can I have a motion to open the meeting?
Motion.
Second?
Aye.
All in favor? All right, the board will move into executive session for the purpose of collective negotiations under the Taylor Law, medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment or employment or promotion or demotion or discipline or suspension or removal of a particular person or corporation. Can I have a motion to move into exec?
Motion.
Have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
The board will be back at approximately 7 p.m. Good evening. Today is Wednesday, May 3rd, and the board has just returned from executive session. Can we please stand for the pledge? Here.
Right here.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we get to the really exciting stuff, we do have to announce that this evening there's an opportunity for our public hearing on the budget for the 23-24 school year. If there's anybody in the audience that wish to speak in regards to the budget specifically, now is the opportunity. Give everybody a couple minutes. Nobody? Anybody? We have to wait a couple minutes. Sorry. Is that all right, Carmen? Am I good? All right, moving along. So this evening, we have to approve our agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda this evening?
Motion.
Have a second? All in favor? All right, so we're going to begin with a great recognition celebration of our winter sectional champions, and we have Mr. Baker here tonight to introduce and let us know all about the great stuff that happened this winter.
Thank you and good evening, everybody, and thank you for having us here tonight. It's my honor to be here tonight with many of our student athletes from 4 different programs and some other athletes who have joined us to support their peers and give you a nice little greeting as you walked up the ramp here tonight. So thank you for having us here. The first program I'd like to talk about, I'm going to call up members of our bowling team and our coach that are here tonight. So if we can have our bowlers that are here tonight. And so the first program we're going to acknowledge, and it's actually 2, are our boys and our girls bowling teams. They went back-to-back this year with back-to-back sectional championships. They were the Section 1 champions. Our boys bowling team won the Section 1 championship, and our girls bowling team won the Section 1 championship for 2 years in a row. They had the privilege of moving on up to Syracuse to participate in the state tournament. Our coach Iceman is here joining them. Tonight with us we have Billy Moretti, Mark Libinati, Amber Cooper, Ethan Bromley, Max Minicino, Sage Cato, Mathis Lurch, Tyler Maranaka, and we have other members who are, nobody else on this, right? Other members who couldn't be with us as we had other commitments in some spring sports: Emma Barbalet, Rowan Dapson, Sydney Swicky, Hunter Acapinti, Addie Flinchpaw, Antonia Escobar Cooper, Catherine Devine, and Marlene Piccarello. So these are our back-to-back state champions, and just to give everybody an understanding of how bowling works, it's a full day of sectional championships. So in February, the boys team went up for a full day and competed against all the other teams in the section. And it's 6 games they have to bowl. It's a full day for them. And all total pins wins the sectional championship. The girls did that. We did that in back-to-back days. And it got very tight. It got very exciting. And there was some pressure. Every bowl mattered, right? Every ball they threw mattered. Every frame, every ball mattered. And they pulled it out 2 years in a row, back-to-back Section 1 champions, our boys and girls bowling team here. I'm going to bring all the athletes back at the end. We have one gymnast. If she can come up, Maggie can come on up now. Yeah, Maggie. So our gymnastics program is a merged program with several other high schools. They also were the Section 1 champions as a team. We had 2 Hendrick Hudson girls that participated on that Section 1 team, Ella Simonetti and Maggie Johansson. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each. Ella was part of the Section 1 championship team. She also, which I hold a lot of honor in this one, she was the Section 1 Sportsmanship Award winner at the sectional championships, and she'll be going on to Clemson University. Joining her in our sectional champion to my left is Maggie Johansson. I'm just going to say she had an extremely decorated season as a gymnast. She's a freshman. She was here last year as an 8th grader because she qualified for the state tournament as an 8th grader. The way gymnastics works is that all the gymnasts in the section participate in the Section 1 championships. There's a team championship and an individual championship. Maggie is a freshman and she placed 2nd overall out of all the individual gymnasts. She was 2nd overall in Section 1. She was a 2nd place winner in the vault, 2nd in the balance beam, 3rd in the floor exercise, 6th in the uneven bars, and 5th in the bars, putting her 2nd overall in Section 1. It allowed her to participate at the state tournament as a freshman, where she finished in 7th place in all of New York State. And what I thought was the nicest honor, capping her entire season, she was named the Low HUD Gymnast of the Year for all of Westchester County. Congratulations to Maggie and Ella on the championship, and tremendous job on your end. Congratulations. I have 2 wrestlers with us and some of our coaches. They can join us here. And some of the boys standing behind me are supporting some of the wrestlers here, which is great and very nice that they stepped out of practice tonight. Here they come. All right, good.
What up?
So we're a wrestling program here. I have 2 wrestlers with me. I have 3 of our coaches. I have Coach Tyrone, our head coach, our assistant coach Wolubnik, and our JV coach Porter. And I have 2 gentlemen to my right. I'll first talk about Kyle Pesky. Take a step up here, Kyle. There we go. Kyle, this year, was the 189-pound Section 1 champion. He finished the season at 32-9. He was the Section 1 champion, and he moved on to the state tournament, where he finished 3-2 at the state tournament and 1 match shy of being on the podium and placing. Again, sectional tournament, and all the wrestlers of Division II come. We were the host here at Hendrick Hudson. It was a great day for our district. It was a great day for our entire wrestling community. And Kyle took the title at the 189-pounder. To give you a little bit of sense of what this has happened in the past, I've been an athletic director for 21 years. Kyle and Mason are the 4th and 5th wrestlers that have won sectional titles during my time. It's not an easy task. And congratulations to our 189-pound title, Kyle Pesky. We were lucky enough that day to have 2 sectional championships. After Kyle won his, we had this young man to my right, Mason Dietz, win the Section 1 285-pound championship. He was the Section 1, his sectional record was 29-7. He went on to the state tournament like Kyle. He also finished 3-2, one match shy of placing on the podium. I think Kyle and Mason, I think I speak for them, they are both back next year, and I think that they have that they would say that they're not done. Am I correct with that? I know that. So like Maggie, they'll both be coming back as well. So congratulations to our Section 1 285 And I have some track and field kids along with Coach Bailey, if they can come and join me now. So again, to give you a little background, they're taking their selfie with me. To give you some background, the way the indoor track and field works, this crew will spend, whether it's a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday evening or a weekday evening, down in New York City at the Armory, and I believe these sectional championships were during the week this year, right? Am I correct? Was that a Sunday? Friday. So it's a 2-day event in Armory. They have long hours. They put an enormous amount of time in. They have to spend the whole day down at the Armory waiting for their event to come up and then compete against their peers. And many of them are competing in several different events. And these 4 young men and women to my left each won a sectional championship. So I'm going to talk about each of them individually. I'll have them step up. So Dave Fairman was the Section 1 champion, the 55-meter dash, in 6.67 seconds. He broke the school record in doing that, and that was held for 20 years by a former Hen Hud athlete, Alex Edwards. Our Riverside. David went on to compete in the Nike Indoor Nationals in the 60-meter dash, and he'll continue his education track career and maybe do some drama at SUNY Potsdam next year. Our Section 1 55-meter dash champion. So Trey also joined his brother by winning an event as a Section 1 champion. He was a Section 1 pole vault champion, clearing his personal best of 12 feet. That's not an easy task. He went on to clear 12 foot 6 inches at the state qualifier meet. He's also an accomplished sprinter and long jumper. He broke the school record in the 200-meter dash, and he competed in the long jump at the Nike Indoor Nationals. He'll continue his education and track career at SUNY Geneseo. Section 1 pole vault champion Trey Fiscal. Carly's next. So Carly Martin, also a Section 1 champion. She was a Section 1 shot put champion in sectionals. She broke her personal best of 34 feet 10 inches. She also this season established a new school record in the 20-pound weight throw with a toss of 40 feet quarter inch. She competed in the Nike Indoor Nationals in the weight throw. She will continue her education and track career at Vermont State College at Castleton next year. Your Section 1 shot put champion, Carly Martin. Come on, Morgan. Because I'm going to talk a little more about you. So Morgan Davis was also a Section 1 champion. She won 2 events in the sectionals. Her specialty is the high jump. She won that with a jump of 5 foot 2 inches, 1 inch shy of her personal best earlier in the season. She then went on, she was a high jumping and also long jumping, running back and forth between events. If you've seen Morgan at an event, she's sometimes competing in both events simultaneously, running back and forth. She was also the long jump champion with a personal best at that time of 15 feet, 5 3/4 inches. She went on to compete at the New York State Championships and the Nike Indoor Nationals in the high jump. Morgan will continue her education and track career at the University of Vermont next year. And I'll just say this, I was there the day with our, we went out for indoor state champions out in Staten Island. And one of the nicest things I say, she had Carly with her there, supporting her throughout the day as a great teammate with her team. And it's one of the nicest things I think as an athletic director is seeing teammates there to support her. It was a privilege watching me that day. But one of the things I like to say about Morgan is that when we did this last year in the winter season for some of our champions, Morgan wasn't with the track and field team, she was with the bowling team. And she was a sectional champion with the bowling team and went on to the states as a bowler. Last spring, she went on to the state championships in track and field outdoors. And I always kid with Morgan, I said, Morgan, you have done 3 state qualifying events here at Henry-Cutson as an athlete in bowling, indoor track, and spring track. She's probably not done this spring, right, Morgan? I know. So, and I think it's and I always talk many times to the Board of Education about the opportunities we present here. Morgan took advantage of all the opportunities and succeeded at them all. So, congratulations to Morgan. 2 Section 1 I think let's finish up. If I can have all the athletes in attendance just stand here around the podium because one of our student athletes would like to say something quickly to the board, and I'd like to have his peers around him as he says thank you to them. So I'll wait for him to come up. They're all here. Come on up. Amazing. Trey Fearman would like to say a few words here, so thank you.
Hey guys, hope you have a good night. On behalf of all of us here tonight and all of the HUD athletes, we would like to thank the Board of Education, the district, the community, Mr. Baker, our coaches, and our parents for supporting all of our athletic endeavors. We especially want to thank Mr. Baker for his dedication. Most of us don't compete at HUD. We are at the bowling alley, a gymnastics site, or the Armory in New York City. Mr. Baker has come to watch us even at states. Athletics is a very important part of our time here at HUD. Not only are we proud to compete for our school, but it keeps us on target with our academics and provides us with the opportunity to meet many fellow competitors from other schools. We all work very hard during practicing, resulting in the outstanding performances in our competitions. We are keenly aware that we are role models to our teammates and that our performance inspires others on our teams to train harder and strive for excellence. We appreciate the opportunity to excel, and specifically for my teammates and I. We will all be continuing to pursue our sport in college. Thank you again for your support of our entire athletic program.
Thank you, Trey. So On behalf of our student athletes here tonight and all of our student athletes, I just want to say thank you as well for all of your support as well to our entire athletic program. Thank you for having us here tonight, and thank you for your support.
Thank you.
If we can dismiss our student athletes, now's the time. So thank you, and thank you to our parents here tonight supporting as well.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Yeah.
Thank you, see you guys soon.
All right, so we're going to begin with our audience comments section on agenda and non-agenda items.
Will Walsh.
Apologize for clearing the room. A thank you, 2 questions, and then a comment observation. First, thank you for putting the budget online. It made things a lot easier rather than going to the library. Just as a suggestion, the 4 meetings were all during the day, which for people who work was a little tough. So if one of those next year could be scheduled that night, it would be helpful. Second, for the academy at the high school, my understanding is that 3 of the 4 teachers in the program did not see a renewal of their contract. If this is correct, what is the plan for going forward with the academy and high school? Next question, for the new search for the next superintendent, the board is approving contracts for the next year with consultants assisting the acting superintendent. For the last 3 superintendent searches, the district used BOCES to assist, and for at least 2 of those, John McCarthy, who had been the high school principal here, had assisted with that process. Is there a reason for moving away from BOCES, and what is the process that the board is anticipating using going forward for the selection of the next superintendent? Finally, I'm not sure where this falls as a comment. Last night's candidate forum was interesting. And at both the start and the conclusion of the forum, everyone was encouraged to contact the candidates with follow-up questions. During the forum, one candidate decried extreme ideological-driven curriculum, announced her opposition to critical race theory, and proclaimed her support for parental rights. I sent a set of follow-up questions to the candidate on her public Facebook page looking for clarification on these points. That candidate, rather than answering the questions, deleted them, blocked me from her public page. Now, I recognize that there's very little that the board can do directly about this. I raise this here for a couple of reasons. First, it is deeply disturbing to me that anyone running for a trustee position turns immediately to censorship. It is an approach that is the antithesis of communication and transparency appropriate to the position. Second, I'm also very troubled with the language. For, as each of you recognize, I am sure, it is coded language for many who, in communities across the country, have expressed a lack of tolerance for diverse views. As the Legal Defense Fund notes, and it's in a slightly different context, attempts to ban CRT are really attacks on free speech, on discussion about truthful history of race and racism in the United States, and the lived experience of Black people and other people of color. While again I note that there is little that you can do directly, I believe that the board president should remind candidates that they are running for public office and that any action of censorship reflects poorly on the individual, the community, and the board to which they're seeking to join. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to the consent agenda for the evening. Does anybody have anything to pull from the consent agenda? Ally?
Under fiscal 6.4, I wanted to pull the 2 consultant contracts. I think that's it.
Do you want to ask a specific question?
Yeah. Do I need to approve the rest of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We could do that. All right, anybody have anything else to pull before we approve the consent agenda? No? Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda less fiscal 6.4? Motion. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, sorry about that, Ally.
It's okay.
6.4.
So more of maybe a statement or clarification for the community. So these two consultants are going to help us start the superintendent search. So maybe Dr. Laura, maybe you could expand upon how you foresee them helping us start this. I know as trustees, none of the 7 of us have been through a candidate search before. I've started my personal education, and I think the 7 of us have a lot to learn. So how do you see these 2 consultants fitting into the district and as we move forward with the superintendent search?
Let me, so, do you share this one? Thank you. The items, excuse me, let me, in an outline that I provided the board earlier, but for the public's purposes too, the need, first of all, because, let me say this, I told the board and I was interested in, and I would gladly help them with the search, having been through these before in other districts. It's, by the way, not that we're discounting. I have contact with BOCES, and we're going to use this service that's through BOCES in terms of the preparation of materials, the distribution, and the like. So I had that conversation with them yesterday. The difference is that I feel you can take more ownership of it directly, which is the reason why I recommended the going the consultants route. And most important would be getting community input. And because of the concerns that I had in terms of what I expressed during the whole process, I didn't want community members to feel if I were the one, let's say, listening and collecting this information. So I thought it would be best to have 2 outside consultants that would be sitting there listening to community input and coming back to the board, and then collectively the board, along with myself, along with the 2 consultants, can come up with, what does the profile look like and what we want in a superintendent with all that input, and then putting the supportive advertising materials together, and then using the network to distribute them. And that is the same thing that what BOCES would have done. And as I said, we have access to that. State organizations, national organizations, and the like. Then the process when they start to arrive as applicants in that review process would go against the profile and what we've outlined, matching up that what's listed in a resume is in fact actually matching what we were looking for. So let me just pick an odd thing. Or just pick something like, you may so wish to say that somebody needed 15 years experience as a superintendent. I'm exaggerating. 15 years of experience as a superintendent. Well, the pile's going to get limited with who's got 15 years and who does not. So somebody's got to do that. And that's the kind of thing that we would do, sorting through it, coming up with hopefully 5 to 7. I've done this. I've asked around what is the current marketplace, what's going on. And years ago when you used to get 50, they're now telling me you'll be lucky if we see 20. So knowing that means that probably about half of them will get knocked out for whatever reason, and then the board would receive a packet of all of them. We would then go through which ones do you want to interview, so we would go through and have a conversation with the consultants, and then what we would do is establish which ones would come in and see the board. And in that process is also community input, and that has to be negotiated in terms of how you do that, when you wind up at the end, what do you want to do. Do you go up to the public? Remembering that in many of these cases, people are not willing to put themselves out there if they're currently seated. So you have to take all those things into consideration. So I can't give you a blanket, here are the steps, which I've outlined, here's the input we're going to get, and then ultimately when the applicants come in, we're going to have to decide, do we or we don't? And if it's important to you and they don't want to do it, then that might be one that we drop out. So that's all discussion that the board has to come up with at the other end of it, but we have a long way from today to the point of getting those in, having them sorted out, having you interview, and then making a decision. The process is at least a 4, 5, 6 month process.
Okay, and so these 2 consultants are helping us get the process, everything started.
Right.
Okay, we'll go from there.
Right.
I think those were my questions. Thank you.
Can we just add to that the difference between someone like BOCES organizing that as opposed to having a
It's,
consultant?
so if you went with an outside consultant, I mean, outside of what we're doing, I mean, there are national firms that do this and state firms. The cost of those are great. I only know from experience that what they then turn around and do is let's, for example, just say it's a $30,000 payment. So off the top, that firm might take 15 of it, call up local retired superintendents, would you like to conduct a search for us? And so that's what you wind up with anyway. So what we actually did was cut out the middleman. And more importantly, because of the circumstances here, I wanted you to have more control of the situation than giving it even to BOCES. Not that our BOCES is not local, they are. But we know uniquely what we need here, and in the case of what I recommended in terms of the two, they were experienced superintendents, and they, along with myself, between us, we know this state, we cover it from our own experiences, and I know that we'll get candidates from the state. We are also going to advertise nationally, and we'll see what happens with that. My caution with those are, depending on what state they come from, knowing the laws, knowing this district, the learning curve, and that's a concern. Again, your decisions. Not that I'm not going to include in the mix somebody from out of state. I mean, the caution would be, do they have certification? Many of them will come in and say, it's in process, we have to submit to the state. So are you willing to wait? Sometimes it takes months to get those back. Yes, this person is qualified. Others will say, I already have it. I'm from California, but I have New York State, and that's a different story. So it's very difficult to answer all the questions. I'm just trying to think of the things that we're gonna come across as we go down this path.
Okay. One more question. So if we approve these contracts tonight, when can the community expect the next update? Do you think we'd have information for them in the next 2 weeks, 4 weeks? When can they expect more information?
In my conversations with them, and I tentatively, spoke to them in terms of, one is local, one is outside of Albany. We tentatively had a meeting set for next week on the 10th. So that one was coming down, we were all gonna have dinner, and the next morning come on campus to just see and get a feel. And we were gonna try to set up from the calendar, working with Carmen, around our own meetings and around when we would have community input meetings. And so we wanna get past the budget vote, and then we also wanna look at our own schedule, so when you have an opportunity to meet them, so I was trying to piggyback a community input day, those sessions, along with them being able to meet the board in an executive session.
All right, thank you. Great.
I just want to add that I think everybody here is committed, that the whole community, it has their input and their voices heard in what they're looking for in a superintendent.
Any other questions? Okay.
If you want, I can just run through, so let's just read it into the record. What I sent you in the memo, people might be wondering. So phase 1 we're talking about, and that's development of the leadership profile. And that would involve the community input hearings. What are the issues that are facing us? What are the expectations? What are the characteristics? Meet the board, the staff, the community, develop leadership profile, report back to the board, approve the leadership profile. That's phase 1. Phase 2 goes to candidate recruitment, so advertising agencies, newspapers, organizations, state, national, local, and then receive and maintain the application materials as they come in. Then phase 3 is the candidate screening, the typical things you would do with that, trying to align what's in the profile against what the applicants are saying, even maybe having a phone call conversation to kind of tease some of that stuff out, eventually bringing candidates to phase 4, at phase 4 to the Board of Education for evaluation. Some subset of that will be interviews, and then from the interviews, finally getting to a point where you are satisfied, and then we can talk about, again, community input, not community input for finalists, depending on what the circumstances are. You may even consider conducting site visits. That's not uncommon, where a subset of the board would go and visit the other district, speak to people there, come back with feeling good about it. Then in that select and finalist, and make an appointment, negotiate a contract, announce the end of the search.
Thank you.
You will.
All right, can I have a motion to approve 6.4, fiscal 6.4?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, now we're up to our presentations and discussion. This evening we have Ronnie. Is he there already? Oh, great. Hi, Ronnie. We have Ronnie with our strategic plan. I'll let you take it from here and introduce what we've got for everybody tonight.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me okay?
We do, we hear you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, for giving us the opportunity to present about the strategic plan, members of the board, members of the Hendrick-Hudson community. I'm not going to be a talking head tonight for the whole time that I'm here. I'm actually going to introduce the first few slides and then hand the mic off to a few members of the community that have been working on some of our implementation teams to give you some updates about the work that we've been doing in the past few months since the beginning of the school year. So this is why we're here today. Thank you again. And on the next slide, just very quickly, want to reintroduce myself if I am not a familiar face to folks. My name is Ronnie Banjarian. I'm based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and I work with Education Elements, which is an education consulting organization, K-12 consulting organization that supports districts all across the US. And we've been working with Hendrick-Hudson. We're coming up on closing out our third year working with you all. So it's really been a journey, and I've been so grateful to have been there from the very beginning, and just the opportunity to share some updates today. Tonight, I'm joined by Millie Mish, Lawrence Collins, and Janine Eichenholz. And whenever it is their time to share, I know that they'll give you all the requisite introductions as well. And on the next slide, you'll see that our takeaways for today are very straightforward. What is the goal for each of the pillars of our strategic plan? And that's what the folks that I just named, they're going to be speaking to each of the pillars of the plan. What has each implementation team been working on over the course of the past few months? So providing some updates, and then how can you be involved? Just hearing from each of the folks how you can be involved as well. And we'll close out at the end with just a brief kind of here's what's next, what's on the horizon, and if there's time for us to take questions, I'd be happy to take questions as well. So without further ado, I will pass the mic to Mrs. Scollins to talk about pillars 1 and 2, which, as you may know, are the student-facing, more academically inclined pillars of the strategic plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll mute myself, but I'll keep my face on.
Jump in anytime. So we know pillar 1 is looking at student engagement. So you'll see on the screen, we're really focused on encouraging students to connect their interests and their passions and apply them across multiple disciplines. And there are these 3 bullets that we've been kind of housing all of our work in and thinking about. We'll go to the next slide. So what are we currently working on? The first one is a big one, defining engagement. What does student engagement look like and sound like at Hen-Hud? And this has brought out incredible conversation K-12. We've had really good conversation as school leaders with our staff and our students. What does it mean to be engaged? What do our students feel like engagement is in the classroom? And then what do our teachers feel like? And what does it sound like and look like? And at our most recent strategic meeting, we were able to define at each level what engagement is. So each school was able to meet with their faculty and some students, depending on the grade levels, and ask them. And we polled them, and we pulled all that information together, and at each level came up with an elementary definition, a middle definition, and then a high school definition of what that really looks like. Taking into account things like asking questions and inquiry and critical thinking. So we'll be excited to be sharing those as well. One of the other subsets of this pillar is empowerment, student empowerment and advocacy. So we've been working at the middle school level at the profile of our student and really looking at what do we expect out of a student at Blue Mountain Middle School. We've in high school also done student climate surveys, really understanding the student experience at the high school. The elementary level, they have their student ambassadors. I got to meet with the 5th grade ambassadors this week, where they asked a million questions about what it's like at middle school, starting off with, is it scary? The middle school also has a principal's advisory committee where I get feedback from my students about all sorts of things that are really important, really relevant in the middle school world. As well as our PBIS programs and giving students a voice and choice in leading and understanding what it means to be a HENHUD student. And then holistically, really looking at, I say this word a lot, the whole child, the whole experience, and all of the staff, and what are we doing to support our students and our staff socially and emotionally. Looking at our, multi-tiered systems of support and how are we reaching every child, whether they are, below grade level, on grade level, above grade level. What are we doing to support those students? What is the data showing? And what are we doing to support them, not just academically, but socially and emotionally? Because there's that term in education, Maslow before Bloom, right? Our students need to feel really comfortable before we're able to ask them to learn. So having our team structures and our school counselors and working together with them to create a comprehensive plan. Pillar 2, real world experiences. So we've been spending a lot of time and a lot of focus on, you can do the next slide, right? Thank you. A lot of time on our student engagement piece, because before we can jump into our real world experiences, we need to figure out what is engaging our students and what are we doing to engage our students. So the real world experience pathway, we've made some progress on some of this work. And it's been nice to say that we are able to get to Pillar 2 through Pillar 1, because a lot of Pillar 2, you can go to the next slide too, is about what our students want to see. What is the real world application and how can we engage our students in these conversations? And their advocacy for the things that they want. Hispanic Heritage Month was a big one that came up, that they want to be able to, celebrate different cultures. What are we doing to celebrate different cultures across our schools? Our STEAM Innovation Day, career days at all the different levels, really celebrating and highlighting at a variety of levels student experiences and beyond just what they might read about in a book. In this is also parent communication and training, and what can we do to help bring in our community and help our community see what the schools look like, and our schools see, what our students in schools see what's beyond in our community. As well as really looking at our course offerings and updating our course offerings to make sure that they're relevant and that they are engaging. So back to that engaging word.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Millie Mish. I'm here to talk about Pillar 3, clear and targeted communications. What we've really been working on in this pillar is two things: ensuring that the community, the larger school community as a whole, feels informed so that you're getting the information about what's going on in a timely manner, and you're also able to find information on our website or on the school social media. So informed is one part, and then being heard, so that you feel you're able to share your suggestions and maybe your concerns, and you also have opportunity to meet with leadership. So that's really what this pillar is all about. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're working on. First, I do want to start off by saying we should be super proud of the teacher involvement in this project. Two teachers who have been putting a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of effort into this project was Sabrina Pereira and Megan Boyle. They've been great. It's really impressive to see after a day of school that they're continuing to work on this, so we should recognize them. As well as Vanika Joy, she's our director of IT. She's going to be leading the website redesign. I think it's going to be great. We're all going to love it. Find a lot of information there. And the board member, Erica Mills, who has spent a lot of time with us. She's helped us be able to make decisions and work really efficiently and effectively. So thank you to all of them and everyone who's been a part of it, but they've really put a lot of effort in. So what are we working on? Some pretty exciting, interesting, fun things. Social media. We want to make this more of a holistic experience with the community, and we have a great idea to have students involved, because who knows social media better? as well as having our communications that go out be student-focused and student-driven. So how are we going to do these two things we're working on is, the idea is to start an internship model with high school students, and this leads a little bit into Pillar 2's real-world experience. You know, we want kids to have a great experience in high school and to understand how to go out in the world and be productive citizens, but getting some exposure at jobs would be a great way to do that. So that's the idea behind that. They would work under a PR and communication professional on staff with the district. So we're working on all of that. We're also working on a process to allow students, faculty to come to these kind of meetings and tell us what they're working on, what's getting them excited, what are their projects about. And Megan Boyle's been leading that. She's been great, so I'm really excited about the opportunities there. We have begun working on a new website, and Vinitha's leading that, so more to come. We're also working on a district-wide plan in advance. I'm not sure if it'll be a year in advance or how much time, but to give everyone the opportunity to see what's going on at the different schools, to plan your time around your children's events with school and your personal events, and allow the teachers to know. I think that would be a really great thing. So work's been underway for that, as well as creating some sort of FAQ decision structure. So if you have a question, you know, my kid missed the bus, who do I tell? Someone's sick, how do I get their homework? There'll be an easy way on the website to find out who you should contact. If that person's not available, who's next? And these last two bullets have been led by Sabrina Pereira. She's put a lot of effort in, so exciting things to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jeanine Eichenholtz. I'm also joined here by Amelia Silverman, who's also on Pillar 4 with me. So we're both going to be speaking tonight to our shared decision-making pillar. As you can see on the slide, we have three main areas that we are kind of targeting and working within. And then within each of those, we have several goals and several projects that we're working on individually.
So one of the first things that we wanted to start doing is creating a welcoming committee so that when we have new families coming in, they feel welcome into there, letting them know like about the PTA, letting them know about community events, and we wanted to coordinate with the district, the Village of Buchanan, Town of Portland, and the City of Peekskill, to make sure that all of our websites have the same information so that we are, just like I said, welcoming them, letting them know everything that is there. We want to promote the One Hen Hut and open the door for community participation, which goes right along with the second one that we are working on, which is making sure that we are providing all district communications in both English and Spanish, because the only way that our community can participate is if they know what is going on and that they are informed, which leads back to then the other pillars that we were talking about. If they don't know what's going on, they can't tell you how they feel about it. And then the second two kind of go, then bullets 3 and 4 go together. So we want to make sure that we are exploring current offerings of available professional development, webinars, and trainings for staff. Do we have a list of these items that teachers can refer back to in terms of finding it? Are we using BOCES to its full potential, making sure that our teachers are having that training? Is there mandated training that they are doing, focusing on our DEI, our diversity, equity, and inclusion? And this will also help us then to implement holistic student educator support initiatives. And from everything that I'm hearing tonight, all four of these pillars seem to be going hand in hand and really expressing the same interest.
One of the biggest projects that we have to work on is our DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have started with a small group, and our pillar actually has increased in number greatly over the last couple of months because we are constantly looking to add more people. We want a diverse group of individuals. We are looking for people across the board who have different experiences, because the only way that we can promote DEI and work on DEI is if we have that within ourselves. So we have a nice large group together now, and we are really proud of who we are, and we're working together to create
first one there, develop a district-wide DEI policy. So we have looked at other sources. We've looked at NICEAD, we've looked at other PTAs, we've looked at other districts to see what do they have, what are they including, and what can we create to reflect what we want DEI to look like here in Hen Hut, because every community is different, and we want our policy to reflect our neighborhood, our community, and our ideologies. The second part of this, which will help work on that, is we'd like to perform a district-wide equity audit. We have brought up this topic, and it's something that we are currently aiming for and working on now. The goal of that is to provide the data and the information that we need that will help guide our future planning. So again, as we are bringing in the information, it helps us to craft the policy. Policies can move, can adapt as we need them to, so that they are data-driven, and we need that information. Something that we want to start doing, because these are all like kind of big overall ideas, what we want to do to bring that more focused is to start a dialogue with the staff to include culturally responsive curriculum. And one thing that we identify that we can do right away is let's start looking at like the celebratory events and months. Like we have Black History Month and Women's History Month. We've got multiple cultural events, holidays throughout the year. These are a good way to kind of open the door and bring information into the students and allow them to start seeing what else is out there, what does their world look like beyond Hen Hut. So that's kind of a first identifier that we have. But beyond that, we are hoping to look further at their curricula itself. Dr. Laura and Dr. Buller recently met with us, like yesterday recently. So we started this conversation with them and hearing what they have to say and the practices, we're very excited about it. One thing also that I want to point out that we are working on and we'll through dialogue with them is what are our DEI, or what are our hiring policies look like in relation to diversity. We want our staff and our teachers to reflect our community. We want kids to go into school and say, this person looks like me, this person talks like me, this person is like me, and we share the same ideas and interests and things like that. We want that to be reflected so that our students have that sense of belonging that DEIB that brings it all together. So we are also looking at the hiring processes, and we've been very encouraged to hear the focus that our administration has on making sure that we do have a nice diverse group of people working here in Hen Hut. That's it for now. It's enough. It's a big job, but everybody has been really great to work with, and we're really proud of the work that all the pillars are doing, and we thank the board for their support and your participation at every level.
Thank you.
And just in closing, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Cool. Just in closing, I want to say thank you to all of the presenters that carved time out of their busy days and weeks to talk a little bit about the work that their teams are doing. It has been an extremely powerful experience to be working with your district for the past 3 years and seeing how many folks come back and say, I want to keep working on this. I want to stay involved. I want, I'm bringing more people on. Just a couple of days ago, someone from Rebecca Skyhart from Pillar 4 reached out to me and said, hey, we're adding another person as a staff member to the Pillar 4 team. So it's really invigorating to hear and see that folks in the community think that and believe in this work. And it's also from our perspective as your partners in this work, it's really great to see that the folks on the board and the folks in the district administration also truly believe in this work. So thank you for letting us do this work alongside you. Just in closing, just looking ahead, what's coming up in the next couple of months. We have a couple more touch points with the implementation teams, those teams for each of the pillars that you just heard about. We are hoping to get in front of school leaders again. And so to Mrs. Collins' presentation about pillars 1 and 2, kind of digging more in depth about student engagement and real world skills at each of the campuses and continuing to empower teachers and staff to begin to implement some of those ideas on the campuses. And I think if we have time, I don't know how we're doing on time, but if we have time, I would love to, field some questions, or maybe if the questions are better addressed by the members of the community that just presented. That, feel free to ask any questions that are on your mind.
Thanks, Ronnie. Steph, I see you've got Mike ready.
I do. I was really happy to see that you've added people to the Pillar 4. I was wondering, what is the size of the DEI committee? If you don't have it, that's okay.
I'm just gonna check my last email and see how many people are on it now.
It's shared decision making.
It's shared decision.
Number 4 is shared decision making.
So,
That is, but that's include, that, yeah, so shared decision-making, DEI falls under that. So.
But DEI is technically embedded into all 4 of the pillars. This pillar is defining it, has defined it, but we have to work on a policy for the district. So it's all gonna come together.
so
We're up to 16 now on our group email, and I think that includes everybody as of, 2 days ago. So, and the last email that, on Monday, our last group email actually added another person, so we have 16, I think, now, on our pillar.
I hate to say this, but since we've been so bad with communication, I think that there still might be people out there that don't know, and how would they join if they want to become a member?
So, something that we had talked about is, we asked, at, principal level, if there are people that they know of. We've talked to the PTAs. I don't know how much the most recent communications about this particular event, or this particular group, and that's something that I think we've definitely spoken with Ronnie about how do we reach more people, how can we include more people. So that's something that we can definitely keep looking at to find out if there are ways that the district can reach. I mean, we have on the advocacy side. So when we put my PTA advocacy committee hat on for a minute, that committee does have access to every parent in the district. So I can talk to the committee, we can talk to our PTAs to see if the PTAs are comfortable doing this, if we feel that it's something appropriate for the PTAs to send an email out, not just about this particular pillar, but
All
about
of
the
them.
strategic
Yeah,
plan
all
in
of them.
general. Because if anybody wants to be involved at any level, I'm assuming that all of the pillars are still accepting
Yes.
members who want to participate. So we can look at reaching the parents that way. I don't know, and maybe Mrs. Collins can talk about how the staff is being approached, if the staff is getting communications about this.
And students, too.
And students, yeah, there's definitely a place. So I would defer to Ronnie a little bit on, so I guess some of the communications, and then we can talk with Dr. Laura about appropriateness, and we can talk with the PTA leaders about, who's comfortable kind of doing what. I guess we haven't really defined really well which outside PTAs are kind of outside the schools, right? Haven't defined that.
I think that's where, for me, what's next is defining who is, we're working on these things, kind of on ourselves a little bit, right? We need to define who in the district is working on these things for us and with us. And for me, I'm not as involved in pillars 1 and 2, right? But I see that pillar 2 is working on updated course offerings. Well, I think that the whole community would find value in knowing that, and what does that actually mean?
I think the students would really,
Right, and what did
that,
that,
like
what did
an
that
interest,
have-
I mean, we've talked about that, Margaret, in curriculum, with having an interest survey go out to the students to see what kind of courses that would excite them.
I mean, from a parent standpoint, I'm trying to think for myself, we get a lot of communications, we get school-specific communications. I have 2 kids in this school, so I get every email from the high school twice. I get every email from the middle school once. I don't get anything from the elementary school itself, but I get all the emails from the PTA because I'm a member of that PTA and I'm a member of SEPTA. So, there's a lot of stuff that comes in, but I can't remember the last time I had a targeted strategic plan update email. So maybe.
It's time,
That has to go to the whole community.
right? Yeah, the whole community.
My Friday one I concluded.
So the last thing, sorry, Ally, the student climate surveys. And I don't know if you would know this or Ronnie would know this. What was our response rate with that? Because it seemed, I remember getting the email on that, and it seemed a very low response rate. I believe I counted how many, and it was 56.
That was only,
It went up.
no.
Did it go up?
But hold on.
Yeah.
So we had 300 plus students in the middle school participate, and I believe it was more like over 400 at the high school. The 56 comments we saw were just the open response.
Okay.
So it was only open response. I think they had over 400 students actually participate in that. The overall information and data, I don't know, Ronnie can probably share that with us. but a lot of kids did participate.
That makes me feel much
Did
better.
the kids know why they were participating? That I can't answer.
Well, the middle school one was a little over my son's head.
Yeah,
It wasn't really, and I will say,
He really didn't know how to answer the questions.
the questions for the,
My son
so the
did.
questions for the adults and like the community were the same for the students.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we may want to go back and we can talk to Ronnie about this, about making one if we want, if there's certain things we want to do for the students, we can.
Make it kid-friendly so they
Yeah.
understand the questions.
Definitely, and I think that that is part of the conversation, and Michelle just reminded me that we've been really thinking about how can we involve students. I know I have 2 students who, after the survey, expressed interest in being a part of the pillar, being a part of the pillars. One will be going to the high school, so I'll make Anthony make sure that she's here next year. But yeah, so finding ways for them to do that. But I agree, when we shared what the survey was, especially at the middle school, I did get on the announcements and explain what it was and the purpose and why we were doing it, and it was in my email, but I don't think anyone reads the emails. But the students hopefully knew why they were doing it, but I agree, I think that that's something we can read.
The questions were over their head, like, some of
Yeah,
them they could
ignorance,
answer, but
everything.
the
It's
language
harder.
was hard for,
Yeah.
maybe it's just my kid, I don't know.
I think it norms,
not.
it gives us
Okay,
data, it
just
gives us the data norm to see the same questions for everyone, but I think at the same time, it would be nice to have a different subset for specific students.
Thank you.
Yeah. And just speaking from my perspective, I was just pulling up, I wanted to give you the most accurate number. We worked, this was from November through December, we had the survey window open for about 4 or 5 weeks, and it was, as you know, a community-wide survey. The power of the survey was that it was the same survey that was administered last year. And so when we all came together in January, we actually looked at each of the survey items a year over year, how the community responded last year versus this year. But since we're talking about students, I have that pulled up as well. We ended up having 670 students overall. I had it pulled up now. I think, okay, so we had 307 from the middle school, 381 from the high school, and then the rest the rest were data points from just a few from elementary schools. But we had a lot of survey completion from the middle school and a lot of survey completion from the high school as well. But to Erica's point, yes, that document that had the 56 rows, those were just those students that chose to fill out the open response portion of the survey. But, and I'll say this because I want to close the loop on that. If, in future years, from our end, it is very, very easy to customize the survey for different age groups or different grade levels. And so even though it was the case this year that if I was a student, I pick student, I do see some general questions that everybody sees, but then some specific student facing questions. What we can do is also if I say that I'm a middle school or an elementary school student, we can make those same questions more kid friendly, as it were.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know you both have questions.
You can go first.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So, sorry. I guess for pillar 1, I was wondering, so what would be like something that we're going to see from, like, I think you're doing a lot of work, there's probably a lot of data, but I was just wondering, like, what can we anticipate a student to see a difference or a community member or stakeholder to see for like next year?
So I think that that's something that is going to be multifaceted. The definitions are going to be more public. What does it really mean? We're spending time looking at our curriculum this summer and thinking about what can we do to add more experience that targets that. I can speak specifically for the middle school. Our most recent faculty meeting was my staff looking at the definition of engagement, picking one of their lessons, looking at our profile, and one of the elements of the profile most of them picked responsibility or critical thinking, and how can we merge those and update their lesson in that way. So I'm not sure that we'll see huge wholesale change for next year, but I think that the goal is incrementally moving in that direction. In certain areas, New York State's curriculum is moving that way too, is going to be more hands-on, certain elements of science. But I think the initial conversations of what is engagement and what do we define engagement as are important before we're able to internalize that as educators and start to change our lessons. And our units, and I think that's really what we're going to start to see moving forward is how are we taking this definition and now that we believe this and as a whole school community we've understood that this is a priority, what are we doing with that? I've had a lot of conversation with Margaret too, as administrators overall, K-12, what are our consultants that we work with? How are they going to be able to, the consultants that come in and work with our social studies departments, how can they help our teachers start to move in this direction? Reevaluating some of our courses, whether it is from art to music to science, social studies, or digital literacy, and thinking about what are we doing to make sure that our students feel engaged in those classes, asking our students. And I think we'll start to see smaller changes in just curricular topics or streamlining certain concepts so that they're not being taught over and over in every single class, that you're seeing different elements in each class. But I don't think it'll be a wholesale change out. I think it is going to take time because it is a big concept. Selfishly and specifically at the middle school with that, our students in my principal's advisory committee with the profile, what we've done is looked at those elements in the profile, and then next year those students have started to brainstorm and come up with a plan for a reward system and what does it look like in the classroom, and how can we start to help our teachers internalize that and our kids internalize that and reward students who see that way. So really thinking about engagement, not just academically, but beyond academics.
Any thought of, like peer leadership at the high school being somewhat involved at the middle school? I think there's a lot of programs that we have at the high school that kids don't know about, and it would be nice for them to be helping engage each other from vertically.
Definitely. We've been doing a lot of work. Actually, Josh, Anthony, and I have spent a lot of time together this year really planning out the experience 4 through 12 and what can we do to kind of ease those transitions and help students be models for one another. So that's definitely in the works. And we've talked a lot actually about peer mediation and programs that used to be in existence within the middle school, but how can we use our high school students to help support that? So that's a conversation that we've had.
Okay, great.
Thank you. So I had just some questions on Pillar 3, since I was involved early on. It seems like you're doing a lot of great work. There are a lot of things going on. It seems very tactical in nature, though, because I think one of the things we talked about originally was having a communications leader and someone who can really bring this district together as one hen hut, right? Someone who's going to focus on internal communications, external communications. School rankings was a big one, right? And I didn't see any of that going on, and that's concerning to me because I think we want to focus on that fairly quickly. Like, what is it? Where is it?
I think that's the role, but it probably needs to be further.
The communications.
I mean, it can be added.
Right. I don't know if it's
pretty much every meeting.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're focusing on the strategic, bigger vision and not just, the tactical things are absolutely important. They're low-hanging fruit, short-term things we can accomplish.
That's the what's
Right.
next. That's what we
Yeah,
really wanted
so
to
this
focus
is-
about. We wanted to show the public what we're actually working on.
Just because that was exactly what I
And
was
then
saying.
now so this is what we're working on. In our notes, each of our pillars have so much that's worked on. This is part of that, and the communications relations function is also.
Is that going to be, that is going to be that?
It's
Okay.
going to be a decision that ultimately the board's going to have to make.
Right, and that's the thing is, if we don't have it in the budget this year, that means we got to wait for next year, or are we going to be able to find the money?
So if you
Thanks, Jim.
look at item personnel now number 11.2.
Yeah,
In that position that we're just gonna discuss tonight and probably vote on, the HR position, Ed Communications, has this piece in it.
It
So-
came from.
so
It came out of
the
the,
HR person will have communications?
we'll have
Yes.
we want the HR person to be in charge of what you were just speaking about.
It's a
because-
very different discipline.
No, agreed, go ahead, some of you had better, somebody raised it, and I said, now I understand what you were trying to do. It works well because it's that same piece, we're out there in everything that we do, including hiring, all the way through, and so all of our documents, plus all of the communications that we do, need to be orchestrated. We have it, it works well now in terms of getting stuff out. It's not orchestrated and planned, it's reactive rather than proactive.
It's not strategic.
No, it's not strategic.
Right.
And that, we need a body that can sit with cabinet and talk about that and make sure it happens. A logical place when we were creating the position for the new HR position would be to put it there. At first, I thought it didn't work, and then I found out that there are other districts that have it.
But it'd be a
You mentioned
person-
one to me, which district was it that
I
had it?
don't remember which district it is.
But a
I have the
friend.
job
But is it a
She has the
person
job
that would
description.
report into HR then, or is it,
No.
it's one person who would do HR and comms?
That's correct.
And would own our narrative.
Yeah,
Right.
I just, having come from, comms background, I just kind of feel it's a very different discipline to have HR versus comms, right? You're probably gonna have someone who's very strong in HR and maybe can do some comms, or you get a very strong person in comms who maybe has some HR experience, and that,
But
I'd be
the
concerned
only
about
thing is
that.
the support we have presently, that we have our BOCES service through Karen Hoffman. We have people here. It's just, it's
Yeah.
more reactive and it comes out of, oh, here's a thought, we need to get something out.
Right.
And now, one person kind of keeping the eye on the ball about, maybe it's all of what we're doing with strategic planning and making sure on a monthly basis something's going on I'm just making
Yeah.
up things, but I'm trying to get it so that someone's watching it rather than somebody coming in to say to me, we better do communication on, and then I'm running around, I gotta find Karen, we gotta write something up, and it's thoughtful as it could be and coordinated with everything else that we're doing.
Yeah, to have someone focused on internal comms, external comms, school rankings, focusing on bringing the community together as one hen HUD, I just feel like that is more than a full-time position. Like, we talked about this in the pillar. To have it combined, I just respectfully disagree that. I don't think it should be one person who has both functions. It's okay if a comms person reports into HR. I think that would be fine, but you need somebody who really is focused on all these things that are happening, not just inside the district, outside the district. Someone who can work with the students to do the social media and have a coordinated effort around how they strategically place social media content and how it builds into the entire message of the district, which builds into the mission and vision of the district, right? And to have an HR person doing that and HR, that's more than one FTE.
So it's not that we don't have it, I want to go back again, we are spending money in the area of, and maybe we need to look at and reallocate what we're doing.
Yeah, I don't want to be disrespectful.
No,
But
Having
clearly,
this whole
what,
discussion shortly,
Yeah, no,
we
it's
got
fine, yeah.
Ronnie and everybody on the line, so if there's anything
it's a
more.
pillar, yeah, so.
We have it, it's a discussion item, so I don't
Okay.
wanna get too far into it, it's good commentary and it's good discussion and it's good information. But I want to eventually let Ronnie go, but is
Two more
there,
tactical items.
go ahead.
Okay, for pillar 3. So the first is, so I subscribe to the Hendrick Hudson District calendar, and it goes on my phone, right? And I get everything on it.
Yeah.
It would be great if we had calendars for each building and one for the district
Mhm.
on the whole, so like, board meetings and things like that. It would be great, because then parents could actually have the calendars on their phone for the schools that they care about and see the events that they care about directly.
Yeah.
So I think that would be one good thing. The other thing is, you talked about the FAQ. The FAQ, it really sounds like a decision tree, right? And what you might want to do, automate that decision tree for parents and for students, and who do I go to? I have a problem, here's a drop down of all the things that I could have a problem with. Choose that problem. And then here's the school that I'm in, or the school that I care about. And these are the people that you go to and what you do. And so you can have that decision tree that actually leads you to the answer versus saying, okay, point you in this direction, point you in that direction. Like one of the things that changes people's experience is, think about when you go to Home Depot, right? If you go to Home Depot and you say, I need to find these particular screws, and then you find the person, they say, oh, it's over in aisle 16. You go to aisle 16, you never find it because you don't know where the heck it is. But then another person actually says, you know what, let me just take you there and I'll show you how to find it, right? It's a very different experience for that person. So for the people that come to our site saying, I need to understand who I need to contact, let's walk them through that.
Sure, I think, you know, where we have a sort of pre-made templated website, there's only certain options, so there will be some limitations, but we will make it as robust as we can within the technical limitations, and Vinitha is very knowledgeable in school technology and the needs and what other districts are doing, so I'm confident we'll make it a huge improvement from what we have right now. It may not be like a corporate website with all the bells and whistles, but you'll be able to find the information, I think, and it'll be helpful.
I actually have been
Thank you.
saying this for forever. I actually like paper, and I would love if, like, at orientation, somebody gave me that, like, here you go, right? Here is everything that you need to know. This is an emergency cheat sheet on your kid's school, because for me, it's always when I don't have service, when my Wi-Fi is not working, when I can't find my phone, and I need to, you know? So I just think that if you could put that on paper too, it would be awesome.
We need a PTA handbook again.
I'm sure if it's a thing, a written thing, we have, definitely both, maybe. But we're still gathering the answers to the questions, so we haven't even considered how to build the structure. Like, what are the questions? Who are the people that answer them? So there's still a lot of legwork that has to happen. So there's plenty of opportunity for all this input, but it's great. Thank you.
Thank
Millie,
you.
I have one other,
Yeah.
we used to have an app. Can you look to see if that's possible to get an app back?
I think we can.
It does?
I think so.
I
It has
think-
to do with it has to do with the server.
Yeah, I think the website is coded for mobile phones too. So you can ask for the full view of the site, or you can ask for the
Yeah,
mobile
but there used
site.
to be an app.
Yeah.
Well, all you have to do is just pop a link to that. We should have an easy way for people to pop that link to the website onto their home screen, right? Which is, you don't really need an app because the mobile version is the app,
Okay.
right? So it's just a
Doesn't
matter of having a link
We
on
can
the
look
website.
Then
into it.
explain it
It's
to
a
us
very
less
easy thing to
techie
do.
people.
Yeah, it's an easy
IT
thing to
techie.
do.
Yeah,
Low-hanging
I
fruit.
know we used to, I had the app and then it didn't work anymore, so I
it's-
deleted it, but.
It's a server issue.
I'm not familiar with that app, but I
Yeah.
know my kids' sports teams have them and they're easy, so, yeah, sounds like a great idea. We'll add it to the list.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody have any other questions? Before we let Ronnie go for the night. Ronnie, are you there?
He may be gone.
I'm here. No,
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ronnie.
Ronnie.
Good night.
it's my pleasure. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks. All right. Thank you all very much. All right, so the next on our agenda for this evening is superintendent's report.
Yeah, I can just address some of the, we spoke a little bit, I'm sorry. We spoke a little bit about the search, so I won't, belabor that point. There were some comments earlier, and they're easy to address, so if you don't mind, I will probably do that, because they were part of my remarks anyway. So I want to continually say that despite all the effort I had in terms of explaining how we went about laying off staff because of with the decline in enrollment, it's still being interpreted as cuts in program. And so again, I want to remind everyone that, for example, the question that was just asked regarding the 3 people that were let go on the list from the academy is not being cut at all. It will be restructured. It's not a program cut, it's an improvement. We just need to get to do it. And the issue there is when we go from last hired, and in an accessing situation, it had a ripple effect, and so sometimes it affects different areas, and that's happened to be wasn't intentional, but just the way they were in those disciplines, three of them were sitting in the academy. And so that's how that happened. It doesn't mean that we're cutting the program. So just to clarify that point. On another note, there were, see if I can find my notes here. So the board, I don't want to say the wrong thing here. Also in regard to that, there was the question on the TAs and the update we will have for you within the day. We haven't had time to be able to meet, but the chart was helpful. It's outlined like that. And we're trying to get Enrique, myself, and Lisa, and Margaret in the same room, but the way everybody's been covering everything, I apologize for that, but we will have that information. It is done. We are working with that unit to put an incentive in place, and I think I shared some of that with you, so there will be an incentive. We're waiting for the attorney's return of it to get it back out for them to agree to. We have a verbal agreement, the conditions were okay with them. Enrique and I spoke a little bit about, there was a change in terms of their accumulated number of sick days is now always near the teacher or the administrator, so I had to alter the levels. They have a ceiling of 165, so we couldn't use the 400 number or the 300 number that we had, so it got scaled down. So that you'll see as soon as I get it back from the attorneys. That's out, and then on Friday is our first deadline on the teacher retirement, and we had a plateau of hitting $1 million savings, and we're slightly under it. Margaret and I have been discussing, because people have contacted us individually and collectively, and we've looked at it, and we know, even speaking with the union president Lisa, that there'll probably be another one or two coming in, which will push it over the $1 million mark. So we were successful in that. And then I think, going just to mention what Corey did, remember what I was saying, is that's the money, it is in the budget. The savings is in the current budget. So when we discuss these kinds of positions and for the community, that's where the money is. And we're going to make sure we keep tabs on it, so we never run into the problem that when I arrived here we ran into, is do we or don't we have money in the savings? Because we're going to track what we're doing, and you'll see it, and then you'll be able to make the decisions. Basically, I don't think there's anything else I had. So did I leave anything out that I think of?
That's great.
I will say this, working on master schedule, we spoke about that a minute. So master schedules, we are trying to work with I'm trying to get a consultant to do the high school one. It needs revision, it needs updating. It's been rolled over for maybe 10 years. And so it lost its, no one's looking at it with an objective eye. So we're trying to look for efficiencies and improving the way things work. And so let me give an example. I routinely, you might see something that I'm just picking out of the blue here. Let's just say English 9 is a subject every student takes. Simple, take 140 students, take a 9-period, let's just do 180. 180 students, 9-period day. Logically, you can have one in each of the 9 periods with 20 kids in it, and you got it covered. So that's the easy way. It becomes odd when you work with other courses where not every kid is taking, and so now we've got 60 kids, and I might have 2 sections or 3 sections, and then where do I strategically put it? Well, if I put it period 3, and it's for all the other, say, 9th graders, then, or that's not a good one because they don't have electives, 11th graders. And then I have to watch out what I put it opposite, because if I don't, it just collides in the schedule, and you wind up with either everybody going here or everybody going over here, and you think you're dropping it because there's no students. If you had put it in another period and you weren't competing, I'm just trying to give you an understanding of, it's a complex thing. If it's automated and done correctly with a few runs, then once you have it, you run the whole student course selection against it. It loads it, and you have your teachers assigned, and voila, you have your schedules ready to go. So we're trying to, I'm helping. We're trying to locate a consultant that can help us, even remotely. So I made some more calls this morning. It's difficult to find somebody that's available. That's the problem. It's kind of late. We got started, we're on the late side. Many people start this in February, and it's usually done by now. We're always behind the 8 ball here for some odd reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but we are. So we're trying to work on it. And I think we'll see a big improvement, even if I have to do it myself. Because I know how to do it, but I will. That's it for me.
All right. Any questions? You all good? Committee reports?
You wanna do the WESPA?
I think that's next.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have something? Something's brewing in Erica?
You walked through.
We walked through the high
Bonnie,
school.
we can talk
You
about
can just
that.
mention that you did. I think it's important.
Part of facilities.
Yeah, the facilities committee met yesterday at the high school. We did a walkthrough of the cafeteria, the auditorium, and a couple of other spaces to identify, the main objective is to get the auditorium done the way that was originally planned. And, you know, when you, it's important, it was important to, certain things were important to see how the space worked. And I think now we understand what they need. So Claire Carey, Anthony Rollini, Anthony Giovinazzi we met with them yesterday, and I think that we kind of have a plan to get that finally done and also problem solved. If they actually were able to problem solve a few things backstage. So that's great news. I believe all the parts but one are in-house to finish, right? We're missing
a plate.
We're missing a plate.
And the microphones aren't in yet.
The microphones are not in there. They're still
Still?
coming. Still, but it's all planned and coming.
You guaranteed we would have the microphones.
No.
No, not for.
No. It wasn't guaranteed that we would have the microphones for the show. We actually knew we were probably gonna have to rent them, or the company that we worked with, we borrowed, they loaned them to us, or?
They loaned them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he guaranteed that we would have them by a certain date, and that's
I
why we
don't know
got
what to
the,
tell
that's
you.
why we didn't get the better microphones, right?
Okay.
We got the cheaper microphones because they were more available. We didn't get the better microphones because it would take too long. Now we might as well have gotten the better microphones, right?
Maybe, but, you know.
You might not
I'm
get
just-
those for
I'm just
another year.
saying, like,
Well, you know, there's nothing we can do on that, you know, it's the company, we trust, we trusted the company. Maybe, you know, I don't know what to tell you, it's something that we're just having problems, it's something that, you know, there's nothing that Claire, Anthony, or me can do,
Can we follow up on that and see when I did ask Anthony to give us some sort of timeline on some of this stuff. So, he's gonna work on that. Yeah. And then, we went through the cafeteria, and, we're having a little bit of some issues with the design of the seating in the cafeteria is causing the seats to break. Partially because of overuse, partially some of it is the kids sit down, they move around, and they're circular, so the design is poor. And then in other cases, they're loose and the kids are breaking them off. So we discussed a plan going forward with Claire, that it may look like it may just be the design, the floor design of the chairs. And it seems silly, but it does cause, you know, we have less seating in the cafeteria because of it. So she ordered the chairs to fix them. A lot of them were under warranty, which was great. So the custodians have to work to fix them. It's like everyone gets involved, so, you know.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
90 seats.
It's not a couple, there's a lot of seats broken.
How many do we have? That 90 broke, there's not 900,
mean,
right?
There's
So-
a lot. There's
Maybe
gotta be, there
30%?
Yeah, there ideally should be 300 to 400 seats in that room at a time, because you sometimes have that many kids in there.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
A third,
I'd say
yeah,
30%.
a third. Wow. And how old are they?
No.
They're all over. Claire would have to answer that question more specifically.
Okay.
Some of them were a little older, and they just ended up replacing the seats because, like I said, some were under warranty.
Yeah.
But the design of them is a little funny. I think that was it, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Right. The next thing that we need to take care of is our Westchester Putnam School Board Association administrative budget and board election. And Jen, you want to take it from here?
So I'm just gonna read, so everyone is familiar with what Westchester Putnam School Board Association does. So WESPA works throughout the year to provide timely and relevant services, programming, and data resources geared to the unique needs of our districts. In partnership with our school districts and the Lower Hudson Education Coalition, we advocate for public education and the children we serve. We are committed to providing networking opportunities for school board trustees and make information and learning readily available to board governance topics and current issues in the public education. I just took that snippet out of their role. So we are a part of the Westchester Putnam School Board Association. A lot of the board training is run through WESPA. So the dues increase from this year to next year is 3%. So they break it down. The attachments are in the board docs, but you can see it's roughly 3%. They continuously look for savings, but a lot of it has to do with program fees that they provide for us for training. A lot of them are free for school board members. Superintendents also attend, so a lot of them are presented by local school board or superintendents come and present. Usually I go monthly. So what they also asked us to approve their budget, and then they also asked us to approve their slate for the board, for their leadership for 23-24. Again, that is on the next sheet, and it's just the officers for a one-year term, the continuing directors, the new directors, and the nominees for elected seats. Most of these people are on all of the events that I virtually attend and in person. There are becoming more in-person events now that COVID is a thing of the past, we'll say. So previously there were a lot of virtual, so now we're getting back into in-person events. They have dinners and lunches so that we can have roundtable discussions about certain topics. They're always looking for us to give our view on what we would like to discuss as a unit for this area. So it's a great resource for us as trustees and for us as the board to see what our neighboring districts are doing and how, we're all dealing with very much similar situations and concerns. So just, yes, we can, I think the last sheet is for us to vote.
And Jen, you're attending this meeting to vote
Yeah.
for us? Okay.
We could fill it out. We should take the vote.
Yep.
But I will attend virtually. Yeah, or it is virtual, so.
Do we vote on these things separately, Carmen, or together?
Yes, the budget and then the slate of work.
Okay, I can't read anything fancy up there, but.
So the first is the ratification of the 23-24 West Pub budget. A motion to vote on the ratification of the 23-24 West Pub budget. Second. All in favor? And then move to vote on the slate of 23-24 officers and members of the board of directors.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.
All right, before we get into other new business, let's just pick up our conversation on the personnel positions. I don't know.
We don't have them in front of us.
We don't, so
No,
there's,
go ahead. You know what you have, you can read off of it.
I don't have it in front of me, but I know that.
Yeah,
There,
three.
he put it on his phone for us.
Oh, Greg's got me.
Oh,
There you go.
Oh,
okay.
okay,
Three.
I got it closer. Okay, so Dr. Lauro has proposed the idea of, and I could read the resolution, whereas the Board of Education of the Hendrick Hudson Central School District has created the position of an Executive Director of Human Resources and Communications. Whereas the Board of Education of the Hendrick Hudson Central School District has created the position of a Supervisor of Counseling Services. And whereas the Board of Education for the Hendrick Hudson Central School District has created a position of a Supervisor of Nursing Services. These are not for voting tonight. We're just going to simply discuss the idea of these three different positions. We began talking about the human resource and communications person while we were focused on strategic plan because it really has been something and a topic that has come out of strategic plan. certain needs. So we can pick back up. I know I kind of cut you guys off before on questions that the board may have for what this position would look like. Maybe you can explain a little bit, Dr. Lauro, the function, the need, the why, and we can ask questions about each specifically.
So if we just to clarify, the very first one is a certificated position. It's a central office position. It's administrative. It would require the district office certification, what's it called again? School district, SDA, school district administration. And the other two are different. And the second one, and we'll just talk broadly about it so you understand these differences. The supervisor of counseling services also is an educational one. It comes under the same certifications, except that it's education, but this is a school building level or school. It's also school district, actually. We do it K-12, and we do want it K-12 because of our elementary. So that one will require the same certification. And then the last one is civil service, where we would have to actually petition through civil service to get the title to be given to us. But it does exist in the civil service titles, and it is called the supervisor of nursing services. Again, to coordinate, we have so many of them now, which is a good thing. It needs coordination. Currently, they're under Lisa. There's too much under Lisa, not to blame Lisa for anything. I'm just saying what we're trying to do is separate these positions, not to create more of an expense. So if I backtrack a little bit and from the bottom up, the supervisor nursing will be one that would be an RN. It can be, we have duplicates in some, so we could say from this pool, our pool, one of them will be designated. Again, they have to meet the requirements, it has to be posted, we have to go through civil service and a test, they have to be one of the top 3 and selected. So my goal would be to do it out of the existing group, whomever may be interested and meets the requirements. So cost to it is whatever we decide to make as a differential. Some of these have to be negotiated with the appropriate units, so I won't speak to it other than to say it's a differential, but it's not a major expense. The second one is similar in that it will also fall under our, let's see if I can, right? The administrative group. I get mixed up with all the letters, so I better just not say it and say the administrative group. And that has to be negotiated. Again, in that case, we have a number of counselors. Now that we have an excess, we wanted to put one in the elementary, which we did include in our discussions with the board and in this budget. So again, what we can do is take the existing numbers that we have. We actually know of one that's a retirement, a resignation, she's leaving, which creates a vacancy, but the vacancy would then go back to, it should be the supervisor. So if you take, the person going out happens to be at the lower end of the salary schedule, a supervisor position should be at the upper end, and our maximum of a person is making closer to like 140, 150, I guess about 150, our top counselor. The person should fall in that same category, but less than the rest of the unit, so you have to kind of watch that. So again, with Enrique and I, we'll have to look and work then with the appropriate unit. It's Anisha, her unit, and negotiate the position in their contract. That's where that one would fall. Going back to the top one, which is central office, it doesn't have a unit. It's independent. It would be an executive director similar to what Lisa and what Margaret have. And so in that particular position, which is the one that we're calling it Human Resources and Communications when we were having the discussion, is the same one that we were just having. So we'll return to that. We all know what Human Resources are. What we're trying to do is put it under one umbrella. So we take everything from civil service all the way through to the educational side of the house and put it under one person. And then we implement all of our policies with one person consistently, and more importantly, that we codify them so that whenever the change occurs, it's not up to one day it's Margaret, another day it was somebody else, and so on. So just making it all one, and we're large enough to be that kind of a district with that kind of a position, in that all you need is one lawsuit in those areas, and you more than pay for the person's salary. So, and it's very complicated. Just family medical leave, all of the rest of this federal requirements, you need somebody that's up on all of those. And that's not being critical of anybody that holds the positions. This is just my idea to consolidate and to, again, what we have a habit of doing here when I arrived is so many people have so many hats, and then it's hard to do any one job correctly. So I don't disagree with you, because that was my first reaction, is like this not fit, and then somebody said it could, and then I got on to and I found out that were districts that did do it, but let Corey pick up with that discussion.
So, just given my experience, I really think that having someone separated out for communications would be best for this district. Someone who could really just focus on that. Because again, wearing too many hats, right? You're a jack of all trades and master of none. So I think it's important that if we have an ED of human resources, they focus on human resources. If we have, you could have a director of communications. It doesn't have to be an ED of communications, right? It depends on what level of experience we think we need. I would think we probably need a more experienced person here with all the issues that we've had over the past couple of years. But I leave that up to this board, right? My term ends June 30th, so I don't know if we're going to have this resolved by then, but I would just hope that we separate out communications from human resources and add a fourth position. Doesn't have to be as senior. Could report up into human resources. That's fine.
And again, I want to remind the board again about restructuring what our resources are now, or at least examining them. I'm not looking to abolish some of them, but we may want to reallocate. So right now, I just don't want the public to think we don't have communications, because we do. We have the services right now through BOCES. So that person is with us 4 out of 5 days a week. Available on the 5th day, the person happens to be in the BOCES office. They do it 1 day a week up there, but we still have access. And all of the communications go through that. But again, it's not that oversight that the committee the strategic plan committee is saying, and not exactly what you were saying. And I did come from a district that when I arrived, I was, oh wow, we have our own. And even when I left and when I went back last year, they're still there. I mean, not that person is she retired, but there's a huge difference when you have one person that is. I know it, I witnessed it, it's just an expense that if the board wants to go there. Again, I want to remind the board that what we did in our budget planning, and if all goes well with all of our layoffs and so on, and things that I did to save, you should have enough money to do a litany of personnel things. This is just the beginning of what I'm bringing to your attention, and we did have a subcommittee meeting the other day, and after our other meeting in exec, when we discussed personnel broadly, we will roll some of those out as needed in the order in which we think of their importance.
And this would be critical to Pillar 3.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I'm not against that, but I think more of a director position.
Mm-hmm.
What does the BOCES cost us?
Do you know offhand?
Do you know, Enrique?
80, somehow I remember 80.
And is it 8 of
Yeah.
them? Do we get money back?
Yes,
We do. So it's
we have
not
to
the
figure-
full amount. I just think the issue with the BOCES, and I don't mean to belittle them in any way, but it clearly has not worked for us, right?
It's not enough.
It's not enough, right? They're doing what they can with the little time that they have. They're not fully dedicated to the district. They're not embedded in the district. They don't really understand our issues. They don't understand what we need strategically. If we had somebody in here who got to know the people, got to know the issues, got to know the community, right? They would have a vision for how we can work on
part
this.
of what we can do, part of what we can do is we can actually speak with our person that works with us for BOCES and with Beth Gruber.
Right.
Okay?
She does.
We can sit with Beth and Karen and see what they can do to help us plan. We can start there because we have an immediate need.
Yeah.
I know that there are people out there that do HR and communications. I think it's the reason. I mean, just think about this. I don't know how much of an HR need we actually have, right? So you're not hiring every single day, or you know what I'm saying? Like
don't think of it as just
It's
hiring.
not hiring, it's a lot more.
I want to think of it as like for their whole life here. It starts with going out looking for people, and when they leave and retire, and even after retirement, because who do you call? Like when I call Pelham, so I get my health benefits. Who do I call? The HR department, who I speak to, when I have a question as a
So-
retired person from that district. That's
Well,
what happens.
It also falls under, like, I know when we vote on all these different positions that our administrators hold, one of them is like a DEI, one of them is a DASA, one of them is this, one of them, that all can fall underneath this as well, correct?
Yeah, yes, you can.
Okay, I mean.
A person won't be sitting there idle if that's what you're worried about. And all the whole DEI. So all of what you're doing with the pillars, this person is the one that can make it happen because it's a full-time position devoted to nothing but the HR function. So help bring that all together.
The community's probably wondering right now, how are we doing HR currently?
Oh, well, one, Margaret handles all the educational side and the
Yeah.
certificated people, and Enrique handles all of the civil service side. And dealing with civil services is another headache.
I've been doing it for 15 years, by the way. No grievances. We've never had a problem with civil service.
No, I don't think that is, but I mean, I think that our plan, when we hired Elements, I'm going back now, was that we were going to do the strategic plan and identify needs, and we were going to satisfy those needs and fund those needs by looking at inefficiencies in the district and where there was, we talked about the decrease in enrollment, so we are just taking and from the ability to save money to further the vision of the community with this strategic plan. Like, we're not raising taxes.
No.
No. I mean, I do think the human resource and the communications together might work if we were trying to save more money. But to Corey's point, if with all of the problems we've had with communications, I could see how a one-point person might help us immensely.
Could you cost it out? Because as soon as we're looking at two separate people, there's two separate benefits packages. So I think it would be helpful to know, not just salary, but if we're looking at two separate roles, how much money it would
And I'll just, again, I want people to understand the differences. So we're talking in the model there, that first position is a certificated person with, on ed law, again, higher salary. If the minute you go into the civil service category, as you know from our earlier discussions on a contract, the numbers are very different. You can hire a director of communications through the civil service side of the world instead of the educational side of the world, and the salary difference is like this.
Yes.
So I don't know what we're allowed to do as a district. Are we not able to increase the relationship with the BOCES communication person so we can have a little bit more of their services offered?
Well, I
Since it's
agree
aidable.
with the statement, start there, and maybe since the two of you, I'm glad they would sit in on the meeting, but
Yeah.
you know them anyway, and Beth is good too, so
Start with, I think we need to start.
start with that
What they
conversation.
can do.
Because I also don't want to necessarily leapfrog Pillar 3. We're asking people to do all this work and then hiring someone before they've even really finished identifying
Oh, it's part of the
all of
vision.
the needs. Yeah, but
So-
is it to hire them now, or is the vision to sort of shape what it becomes?
The vision is to have a function dedicated to communications.
If we had a function, if we had someone dedicated to it, we could,
This
all of
committee-
the pillar could be complete.
Yeah.
Like, and even four, a lot of four could be
Maybe-
really, I mean, it would be a whole package. And I also see that going into pillars 1 and 2 as well, because the whole thing of the promoting the student. What concerns me is the size of our district, hiring two additional administrators. Like, I started to look at what other districts are doing and what staffing they have. A lot of them do have HR, and similar size districts do have HR and curriculum and instruction together, but there are also ones that have HR separate. Then there's ones that have a counselor separate. Then there's ones that have it together. I mean, it's all over the place. There's really no pattern. It's
There's,
really
right,
gonna
every
be up-
district has unique needs and every,
Yes.
right,
Right.
and different talent, and then they use their talent.
Yes.
Can you explain to the community and the board what a supervisor of counseling services would do?
So-
Different than a guidance counselor?
All right, so let me start by the person's going to be a guidance counselor with guidance certification, experienced, hopefully. And therefore, when we look at the ratios and the loads of counselor to student ratios, the state max is 250, well under 200, and even with taking one out we're still well under 200. We're at 160, 170 is about right? So we're in really good shape. It's just fortunate because we have somebody who would be leaving. We might have, if we hadn't done this, we probably would have just saved the money and then just left it the way it was. But that doesn't improve the service. And we now have an extra, we had one, we moved to the 3rd elementary school. So we're increasing our services. It needs coordination with more oversight, not saying Lisa doesn't have oversight, but it's not a primary responsibility. So the kinds of things that you're mentioning, to make sure, for example, what does an elementary guidance program look like? It's very different than middle or high school. High school, we all know that the main goal there at the time you get to 12th grade is where do the students go at the end? Whether they go to technical schools, colleges, off to the world of work, whatever. What are the pathways? How do you get there? How do you counsel them? Most of them, I've spoken to some of our students, and I was surprised, because this is what triggered me, where a couple of them said things to me like, and I said, well, you mean, all right, you're not going to, that's great, I understand what you're doing. Did you ever have this aspiration? What about licensing that's required for that field? I'm not going to name names or pick things, but it was, they weren't aware. So how do you do licensing, let's say to become an electrician, which is different than I'm going to college to become an electrical engineer. Still have 4 years to worry about my degree. But this student has it tomorrow when he leaves, or she leaves, and so that's the concern. What are we doing to counsel that student? I'm not sure we do very much there right now. Then in addition to that, it's all the other. It's the testing program. Who's doing it? It does dumped on the principal or the assistant principals. So the issues become, let's say we just did APs. That all should fall on the director of guidance, the guidance staff. It needs coordination. It's not there now. It doesn't do. They help, but it's coordinated through our AP and our principal. So it's all of the programs. College visitations, bringing college people in, going to visit colleges, creating relationships with HUD and our staff here with the colleges, because I know from our own experiences when we created certain links with certain universities. Voila, the next year or two, we wound up with acceptances at, and I won't name names, but prestigious schools, all because they knew, they even met the superintendent. When they bring them over and talk to the superintendent. They begin to, I had a great experience when I visited HUD. I remember or whatever it is. There are all those things that you have to do. You're competing with the whole rest of the country. So there are all those things that we aren't doing right now, and that's, again, we have what we call instructional leaders that in the existing contract, but they basically, as I found out more today, are divided into either managerial or educational. And again, it's a leftover old thing from 10 to 20 years ago. It needs to be changed, and we were talking to the union about that. So this reflects some of that. Does that answer? Yeah. And I really, Lisa, I can tell you, they'd have a partial load. They would have probably 60, 70, 80 students. They would they would also share in writing for the seniors, so maybe out of that load they'd have a third, and a third. I strongly believe, even though I had a discussion with the existing people who were telling me they were trying to get away with the 9th grade counselor next year and go back to splitting it over 9, 10, 11, 12, which I do not agree with, so we will continue to have that discussion. I think it's important to have a 9th grade counselor and to continue that. Did you have that discussion with them, or they told me? Probably came out of them? That's what I thought. Okay. So see, this is what I mean when you don't, that's not to put Lisa on the spot, but it came to me, and I said, Lisa and I didn't have this discussion, and I said, I kind of believe in a 9th grade counselor. I want to keep that there. So part of that is the program that we were all chatting about when we talk about transitions, 9th grade being one of them, is a critical year, and we've spoken to a couple of people. We've looked at even our neighbors in Yorktown with creating some programs within the 9th grade where the counselors begin to do some of that. And you help the kids, how do I study? What is the library like here? They walk in this building, it's huge. And there's all these other problems. They have plenty of time in their schedules because that's where they get study halls. And they're deadly. I would rather have them do something constructive so we can create a nice program through guidance with the 9th graders. And so that, again, is something that, so what am I looking for? That's what I'm looking for in a person. If we can get the right kind of director that has experiences and can bring that information to us and help implement it here. It's long overdue.
Is it something that, so I guess I'm old fashioned. At what point did the principals not manage the guidance department? At what point here did that stop?
I walked into it, so I can't even tell you that.
I was gonna say,
I don't
it's
even
the
know.
old model, that used to be the old model. You can't, now that we have it orchestrated K through 12, people, we have 1 in each elementary, we now have 2 or 3 in the middle school and 3 or 4 at the high school.
Yes.
It needs coordination. There's
Okay.
they should meet, what I'm gonna say to them is, quarterly, you meet K through 12, at least quarterly. I'm not gonna tell them they have to, but minimally, in a description, I know what I want in there. I want that counselor, they all should probably have a little bit of 10, a little bit of 12, a little 11, a little 12, so that not everyone, the 12th grade counselor gets killed with writing.
Yes.
So these are the things, they're simple, but sometimes we don't think about them. So having someone overseeing it will happen and make sure. I'm not gonna dissolve, we have a 9th grade counselor. It's not working according to them. They wanted to change that and split it all up. I wanna see a 9th grade counselor stay in place for a variety of reasons. Those kids need, when they transition to the high school, they need more guidance from a single person that really says, I'm going to see them 6, 7 times a year. And then, of course, when they do all of them with course selections the following year, following those kids through when they are in 10, and then I have the same kid in 11, and I have the same kid in 12. So here's the plan we developed in 9th grade. Now the 10th grade counselor picks it up and follows it to make sure that they're on target to get to wherever they want to get to, whether it be school and our continued program, technical school, whatever it may be. I'm taking the appropriate courses, I have the right track, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm passing my courses.
Can I just add that one thing that is very important to this position is, it's like Margaret does her curriculum YAGs, we need to be doing YAGs for school counseling, right? And that's what we're currently working on right now with a retired director of guidance. And one of the things that we're finding is we have big gaps, right? And here's a curriculum piece we're missing, here's this curriculum piece. It's also because we have 2 counselors doing 900 kids by themselves, and then as they go to the middle school and high school, it's different expectations. So one of the big things that what they will do is work collaboratively with the counselors, myself, I'm assuming, and creating this YAG and reviewing it every year to make sure we're on the right track. And we thought of this, and here's new social emotional curriculum they're doing in high school, this is how we're gonna implement it. So that's part of the role of this person, they get more hands-on day-to-day stuff.
And would the social workers and the school psychologists fall under this as a counselor?
No, because that's a whole nother ballgame when you talk about mental health clinicians versus school counselors.
And left them right now, they're there under
They're still with me,
PPS.
they would stay with me right now.
Belongs more under the PPS umbrella than guidance does.
I just know I was researching and some schools have it.
It's
Right.
They're all under
it's
and some
hodgepodge,
schools-
depending where you are,
Yeah.
and what the title is of the person that sits in my seat. If you're just a director, most things don't fall under you.
I love it.
So bring it back to you formally, want you to let it percolate and
Yeah.
get some
and have-
input. Anybody else has comments, then reach out to us.
I mean, I think that this also goes back, like, we always talk about what's the 21st century going to look like, and what do we have to do for our students and how to service them best. And I really think that the guidance piece is important. It's just very, it's very important.
And let me mention the supervisor, I don't want to cut that, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we're gonna have a huge step change in how the workforce works in the next 5 years.
Yes.
Right, what jobs you get, what you do, how you're gonna be productive in society is gonna be completely different. And we've gotta have our curriculum and counseling services, in lockstep and understanding what the future is. Like, we can't be looking towards the past, this is how we used to do it, right? It is gonna be a complete step change. And if we don't have that vision, all our students are gonna fall behind, right? And we just don't want that to happen, and we need to be working on that right now.
And I just want to add, the real world experience stuff would fall under this.
Yes, perfect.
I think that's what, we talked a lot about
Internships
CDOS.
and-
Right now we
We've
don't.
talked about CDOS since we've started. And it's been 6 years now, and this person could actually start this program, starting in the middle school. Talk about real world experiences when you're in 6th grade. Hello, you know, and internships. We've tried to, but there's only so much we can do in a day, in a year, and that's where we are.
Pathways, there are different
Lisa,
pathways to
I'm
graduation.
sorry, what is CDOS, just because I don't know what it is, so I'm guessing
It is the
someone else.
career development, and something standards, I can't think of the, oh my gosh. Occupational standards, sorry.
Thank you.
So basically, we send kids to BOCES, right?
Yep,
But we can also do our own in-house,
Yep.
and they can get different pathways and get another type of diploma. They can get their high school diploma with a CDOS credential.
got it. Thank you.
So-
It also allows us to start, it should allow us to start career development earlier.
Yeah.
So kids begin to have a plan, to think about who or what they might want to be and do. But there are a lot of things that this position would definitely, I mean, using the different pathways, not just the humanities pathway to graduation. The state right now is looking at a different method for graduation certification. So when you get out, how do we get out of high school? Right now, we're the only state in the country that has Regents exams. They're looking at minimizing, if not doing away with that impact, and moving to a performance-based assessment plan. They right now are putting the request for a pilot in the field. So some high schools around the state will get on board with this and pilot this program in the next year or two to give us feedback. All of that will be a huge change, not just in what we do, but in how we think about what we do. And this is a position that could definitely be a key player in helping us make this transition.
I think one of the things that's really important too that we have to know is that as we talk about, we can't find home and career teachers. We can't find technology teachers, not Project Lead the Way, but technology teachers anymore. So we've lost that. But if we have kids that want to go to culinary and become chefs and stuff, we don't have that opportunity in schools anymore. We send them up to BOCES. Imagine if we could do all these little kind of things with this person coordinating, bringing people in, doing this. And I'm not talking like a public speaker, I'm like 10 weeks course that we could bring somebody in. So there's many options. It's the fact of someone needs the time to plan that.
And know
execute.
which kids need the
Right.
service.
Right, and which kids
Counseling
want
piece.
to go that way.
Right.
You know, maybe they'll end up in Paris at a culinary school.
And on the last one, on supervisor of nursing services, my vision here is to, if you know what happened, this was an outgrowth of COVID, and it's kind of brought it to my attention, because when I was doing my last interim, I was in the middle of the epidemic. If you have somebody that supervises, you won't have all the burden that fell on the principals in terms of even monitoring who's got COVID and who doesn't, who's got a 5-day, who's got a 10. You need somebody, hopefully there's no epidemics, okay, let's put that. But that's a good example of why we should have had one. And everybody got caught off guard. Everybody got caught off guard. And what we did was we wound up subbing out nursing services and ran up some hefty bills, only because, as you all know from reading the newspapers, if you want a profession, everybody, if you're looking and listening, look at what nurses make right now. I mean, it's that never was the case. So it's become another possible job pathway for people. But the supervisor role would be in ours. We have multiple in several buildings, so out of that group, someone would take it. They would be the same person. Let's say it's somebody, their offices are in the high school. I'm just going to make this one up because we have 2 here, right? So then if her office is here, then what she would do is so-and-so would call in, I'm going to be out in BV. So alert everybody, the other nurse, I'm going to be at BV today. So the first substitute that we have is our own staff. Chances are when you look at them, they're never out simultaneously unless there's an epidemic. So barring that, probably when one's out, we cover with our own. Obviously, the person can float, the buildings are not that far apart. So if there's a need because they're administering meds or something to be here for the same hour because there's just too many, whatever it may be, it gives them that flexibility, but they can cover the building, we don't need a substitute. So that will be a savings, even if we wind up putting a stipend on it to make the cost, the salary up because it's a supervisory role. But we should be saving money there, and I won't know that until we put it in place and look at the existing contracts, but I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. So pick a number, I don't care, in your own mind, don't say it because I have to negotiate this. So don't give the number out. Anyway, whatever you have in your mind, just think of it. We're not spending $200,000 on this position, so we should pocket any savings from that, which probably opens enough to create your communications position. So you see, this is how I like when we look at where we are spending money and how do we save it. And that's why I said, in the current new budget, if it passes, there is enough money for us to do the things that we talked about to improve the system without a burden on the taxpayer, because it's already there. And it's through the savings from the retirement incentives and the layoffs, if they go through. Hopefully there won't be layoffs.
Dennis, there's some savings, but most of the savings are what the facilities committee said, is to be able to have a capital project. Next year, we need $2 million for capital projects.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if, I don't know how much more in savings than $2 million we're going to have.
No, I believe if we look at, that's what we were trying to monitor, so we need to go back and look at what else do
That's
we
what
have.
I was saying,
Right.
There might be more savings, but we need to be careful
Mm-hmm.
that the first $2 million, or at least that's how I understood it from facilities, the first $2 million have to go to fund balance, because that $2 million are going to be for capital projects. If we spend $1 million in anything else, then we only have $1 million. So I agree with you. The issue is, before we make all these, we need to double check that there's enough money plus the $2 million.
No, and that's why I said we need to wait to see when the May 5th comes, and actually there are two others. So as soon as those numbers all come in, we will better know, and I think through our our auditing financing committees, we should be looking at creating, how do we carve out the money, where do we put it, so it's there.
Can we look at our budget for sub-nurses?
I'm sorry?
Our substitute nurses?
How much we spent this year.
How much we spent
That's
this year
what
on
we were saying.
substitute nurses, or even half the year on substitute nurses, and
Sure.
how, because.
Actually, Lisa can tell you.
How much is it, Enrique? Over $2 million, well over $200,000.
So this is a
Yeah.
non-cost.
No, it's really
Actually,
a non-cost, just savings.
Lisa and I were discussing that. I just put $20,000, that it's just nothing, absolutely nothing. She might need another $80,000.
And I'm using my fund that I have for this year, that we didn't budget for because we thought we were going to reduce, and we didn't reduce last year. So I think the one thing that I can say, I talked to Phyllis Machete today, and she said, I want you to know, we've never had a year this smooth where we didn't have to worry about uncovered buildings. Parents weren't unhappy with diabetics or seizure disorders. Great, wonderful. But we've also utilized LPNs differently. So they've covered our buildings, which they can do because there's an RN over them, which is helpful. I just want to leave that in the back of your mind. LPNs have really helped us. Now, keeping a nurse, maybe that's not the way to go, and go this way. And we have that person that could always cover. This building is very unique unto itself. I think we went through 10 nurses in the last 2 years in this building alone. We have a fabulous nurse and an LPN in this building, and we never get a phone call that, hey, we don't have coverage. So I think we have to think when we're doing this, but I don't want to just exclude all LPNs either, because they've saved us with building coverage. But they're so much cheaper than nurses, so much. And I mean, if we bring them on ourselves, or do you keep them at BOCES? Because BOCES, you get some aid back.
Yeah.
I don't know how much aid, Enrique, if you can.
40.
About 40%? So you figure that percent we get back. I mean, it's the following year, but it's still money in our pocket, right? And I think they've been so beneficial. What we really have seen an uptick in probably the last 2 months, which is exciting to me, is field trips, right? We can't cover field trips, so you always will have to sub field trips, especially if it's beyond the school day, because most of our nurses don't work beyond the school day. They might have another job, they might have families, so we will have to sub for that. So we still have to keep that sub pot there, but it's not something as extreme as over $200,000.
I just had the 4 items.
Yep. Is there any other comments on these personnel positions? Okay.
Can I just ask,
Yep.
and Erica will make sure that we have that conversation, so if we come back to you next week, next meeting, or we'll have either split that position or we'll have a solution for it,
Okay.
Communication.
the communications.
Okay. Okay. Other new business? Corey?
So I just had 4 things that I just want to make sure that we're working on, or, we need to talk about it. So the first is, I talked to a number of students and even faculty in the past, and parents, that they didn't realize that we have an anonymous tip function. So I know we started some conversations with Benita about making that more visible to folks, and I think we should have a more concerted effort, proactive effort to educate the community. So whether it's students, faculty, staff, parents, people who don't even have kids in the district, if they know that there is a place where they can anonymously send in information that they know will be acted upon and that their anonymity will be maintained, I think it's just a great thing for the district. In other companies, it's called the Speak Up line, right? It's just a great thing for us to have. You will get people that abuse the Speak Up line, but you will have people that really need it and really use it. And you will have someone who is monitoring those. I want to make sure that we don't miss any of those. Right now, I think it's just on the website, and it's kind of buried on the website, but there should be an 800 number. There should be a way to email somebody. Like, there has to be other ways for people to anonymously contact. The second, and this is a fairly easy one, in the mission wording for the district, we talk about students and then we reference them as his or her. I would just like to change that to their. Just very simple wording. The third is I would like to consider a new policy on auditor term limits. So when I used to audit the New York City Board of Ed, when I used to audit Yonkers, there was a 7-year term. So as an auditor, you knew that you would rotate every 7 years, and it wasn't just the partner, it was a whole new firm, and it was just required by their policy. So I think it would be a good thing for us to have a fresh set of eyes every 7 years. Not that our auditors haven't done a great job, I think they have, but you get a lot of value from getting more objectivity, whether it's internal or external auditors. In some cases, the internal auditors have a longer tenure term. You can consider that. But I think just the fresh eyes, it's a good thing. And the other thing, which I don't know if it's illegal.
Sorry, I'm sorry. The only potential problem is that if you make it a policy, there are not that many auditors that audit schools. I mean, in the 54 school districts, it's divided by 2 or 3. I'm just saying, if you make it a policy, and no one besides our own auditors reply, then what do we do?
Well,
that's what I'm saying. If it's a policy, the problem can be there.
I would find it hard to believe that no other firm out there would want to audit this school. I mean, in every case, so in the city and Yonkers, I mean, I know they're bigger districts and it's probably more money, but you would get Big 4 firms there. In the other districts that were smaller that I audited, they weren't necessarily Big 4, right? And you might get a smaller mid-sized firm or even a small firm, but generally you would get proposals.
For me, that would be the only question.
But
If
can't
it's
you write that
policy-
Then you
into the
can just
policy?
change, yeah.
Like
put
if
wording
we
in the
don't get
policy.
anybody, then you
Okay.
keep it until you
Or
get.
change the policy that year because, hey, we have to change the policy because we didn't get any proposals, you change the policy, right? But hopefully that's not the case. And then the last one, which I don't know if it's illegal or not, but board trustee term limits. I think it would be great if we could limit board trustee terms to 3 terms.
For the first one, I would like to take that back to the safety committee, specifically about the community education part, and brainstorm in the safety committee how we can inform parents, how we can push it into classrooms, and brainstorm with that right there, and maybe come back with some ideas for that part of your concern.
That'd be great.
We
We
have-
need to coordinate with administratively, because it's who's monitoring, so.
That was our biggest challenge
I know.
in safety. Was,
There's two different issues though. There's
It's two
who's
together.
monitoring it, but it's also educating. When we say something, see something, say something. How are we letting kids know what something is?
Right.
How do we teach them when they need to speak up? You know, you can't just say bullying. Is there something that the guidance counselors, their SRO, can push in and make that a real lesson, so they know what to do, where to go with the information, and what actually is something that is reportable.
And most of them are worried about retaliation, right? They're worried that if I say something about this teacher that's been doing something that's pretty terrible, I'm going to get picked on because they'll know it's me, right? And
Just as a teacher, I don't know where you guys are going with this, but if you're gonna put some kind of anonymous, you can say something about me, I mean, what happens to me as the staff member or the teacher? You think I looked at you wrong, and I'm somehow persecuting you for my evil eye on you. I'm just saying, how are staff and teachers protected against that?
Right,
Yeah,
anonymous
that's a
alerts
great
is
question.
for many different things, that's an example, but one of the things is if someone is online bullying me, if someone is chatting me, and I'm talking kid to kid, and I'm afraid to bring it up, then that goes in and that principal gets, there's like a pathway. So it might go to the administrator, it might go to the SRO, it might go to the mental health team, it might go to a school counselor, so there's different pathways. So it's not just for that. So I mean, that's a good example, but that's probably the least example. What we find more is kids will say, be careful, don't come to school tomorrow because, or I'm going to take you out, and kids get nervous about that. So that's a way to let everybody know. It's really only been rolled out, I believe, clearly at the middle school. I don't believe it's been rolled out at all the buildings because Lauren's had past practice with it. So I just want to put that out there. I know it's been discussed, there's been training that happened because the guidance counselors went to it along with the principals, but it's not been fully rolled out at the secondary except for middle school.
And then it does exist on the webpage,
Yes,
so
it
I
is
mean,
on
if
the
somebody
homepage.
would see it there.
Correct.
But I'm
It's
just, I
it's
agree,
utilized.
I checked, Benita was indicating that the only training that was done, because the Lawrence experience was at the middle school, so the rest haven't, they know about it, but
I think
they
the
haven't.
education is huge,
Mhm.
and I think it's great that you want to take the safety committee, but I think the building principals need to say, how do we educate? Even the younger kids, like the fourth and fifth grade, because they're gonna start using that once they hear it, because they play a lot of games together online.
Okay, well, and maybe if, I'll talk to Anthony Merlini, and maybe we can reach out to our building principals to specifically make sure that they can attend when we put it on the
I
agenda.
think it's a great idea.
We will take it up administratively because we have to talk about the monitoring piece.
Right.
I think you should ask for the history.
And how it's being used so far?
Like the middle school, how.
She's had experience,
There's
Lauren
been a lot
has.
of experience.
even with our other district.
Yeah, but we've had this at the middle school for many, many years. So there's data there that can help us and to see what kind of reports we're getting, what time of day. I mean, they probably track a lot of this, and the high school is brand new this year. It is on our homepage. They have it hanging up all over the building, the signs, so.
I just wanted to speak to his term limits. I get the reason for it, but I think you want to be careful with that because right now, we're lucky that we have 5 candidates that have put themselves into the ring, but we've had uncontested races here. So you might not get people to volunteer. And I say that and I want to thank the PTA Advocacy Committee for putting together that candidate forum. And I especially want to thank the candidates for running. I know you put yourself out there to ridicule and negativity, and I want to thank you for putting yourself out there for this community. Be careful with the term limits, because I can tell you right now, seeing what I've seen go on this year, you might not get anyone to run.
I'm just throwing it out there. I think, 12 years is a long time to
It
be
is.
on the board.
I totally agree.
Right? And if there's a point, like, there's no requirement that we have only 7 members on the board, right?
5, 7, no, you
Right.
can do 5,
It
7.
has to be odd, and it has to be 5, 7, or 9.
Yeah.
So you got a little swing there, right? So,
The people in my district have been on the board, oh my God, I think it's 15 or 20 years. And last year was the first year I can remember someone new running.
yeah. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I love them very much. They're wonderful people.
I'm sure you do.
Good catch. Do I think it would be nice to have more people involved
Fresh ideas.
and people who are in the building living it? Yes. But I also think that, once again, you've seen it and you felt it. Had I known what people would come for you and come for your family and say things about your character and ridicule you, who in their right mind would put themselves up to this amount of hours? Because I think there's a lot of people who think that this is it. That instead of sitting in that chair, because I did, that I would just be sitting up here. I just want you all to know, I think about 15, 25 hours a week that you're going to be putting into this, plus some.
You're going to scare me.
Yeah. I thought it was just this, and my husband wants to kill me.
You put that out there.
No, I want them to know. Full disclosure.
All right. Any other new business?
No ridiculing your husband.
New business? All right, so we are not going to adjourn the meeting because we actually adjourned our exec session. I don't know, is there a proper way to?
Same thing you did at the beginning, just that you're going back into,
All right.
if
So-
there's a motion to continue.
You need a motion.
Reconvene.
I need a motion to reconvene exec session, please.
So moved.
Second, Erica, all in favor? Aye. Thank you for coming.